What's going on, Average Joes? Today I am changing things up, as you can tell, but I'm also wanting to talk about my reading habits and my reading origin story. Hi, Editing Joe here, and I noticed that I did 6 practice takes trying to set up this new video. It was clear, I was hearing it, it was fine. I was like, okay, we'll do this. And then I hit record and I started it, and lo and behold, of course, the money shot is blurry. So just bear with me. I think about only the first third is blurry. You should be able to see me though enough. So just stick through it, listen, whatever. But it does clear up eventually. I don't know why it decided to get blurry and not focus on me, but here we are, and this is what happens. This is a growing process. So first things first, as you can tell, scenery is different. I decided to change things up this time. I had my camera downstairs because I'm filming something in the kitchen on how to make bone broth for my work, some of our athletes, and just because I make bone broth all the time and some people are curious. So my camera was downstairs while I was filming that stuff, so I figured while I was down here, I might as well change it up. And also, if you haven't noticed, in my office where I normally record, there's not many books back there. We have our books scattered throughout the house, and this is one place that they are. There's that shelf that's below the TV. There's a floating shelf above the TV, which isn't in camera. And then there's another larger shelf, cubby hole and stuff by the stairs. So yeah, I just want to change it up this time. Sound's not going to be as good because normally I am recording with a podcast mic in my office. And right now all I have is my boom, and it's kind of echoey here, but you know, I needed to, variety is the spice of life, so I needed to change things up and try something new, see if I like it. So I guess let me know your thoughts, but I'll probably still stick with the normal way that I record because it's a lot easier that way, and I have it all set up. I haven't said that much about myself in a lot of my videos. There's a little bit here and there, but I wanted to give a little bit more of an insight to me as a reader, and I guess just a couple of little things. So I wanted to go over a little bit of my origin story, I guess you could say, and how I began reading, what led me to read how I am now and to being a 60 to 70 book a year reader, and then my reading habits and how I read so much now and how I have multiple books going at once. So unlike a lot of people, especially on BookTube and the book community, I did not read when I was younger. I did not read my first book cover to cover until I was in my 20s. So all of the books that we were assigned in school and high school and stuff, sorry to the teachers out there, Alan and everybody else, but I said I read them, but I didn't. And I don't really have a desire to read them. I read enough to get by, to pass, and to stay eligible for sports because that was basically just my priority at the time. And the books just didn't interest me anyway. Even now, looking back, there is no way I have any interest in reading The Grapes of Wrath, okay? So yeah, I didn't read my first book until I was in my 20s. I think I was 20 or 21. Actually, I was probably 21. And I was active duty at the time, and I believe the first book was a book about Colonel Bud Day, and there's this thing in the Air Force for personal development, personal development that you can put on your annual review, and one of them is continuing education, and one of the approved things that you can do is read a book that's on the Chief's list, that for, I believe, the Chief Master Sergeant in the Air Force. He puts out a list of books, and if you read one of those, then you get to put it on your annual report saying, hey, I'm trying to better myself. So that's what I did. I was just like, okay, cool, I needed something, so I read the book. It was good, I liked it enough, and it kind of planted the seed to try out something else that wasn't just history. And I know Harry Potter has always been a big thing. I always heard about it, and I think I had one of the books, but I knew a lot of people that I worked with were reading it a lot. So at the time, I guess I decided, okay, I think the Order of the Phoenix just came out. So I was like, okay, since that one just came out, and the next movie's coming out in, I don't know, a year or so, I'll just read the book for the next movie, The Half-Blood Prince, so that I, kind of know what happens, and then I can see the movie in theater. I'm not that kind of person that, if I've seen the movie, I probably won't read the book, at least for a very long time. And it took me until just this past year to even pick up the first Harry Potter book to go back, because I've already seen the movies a whole bunch of times, and I didn't really, there was other things that I wanted to read that I knew nothing about. But at the time, read The Half-Blood Prince, really, really liked it, moved on to Deathly Hallows, and smashed Deathly Hallows. Read that real quick, and I read it while on like a gate guard duty and like maybe a little bit on the off time. But that kind of started reading for me a little bit. And I remember my very first deployment in 2009. There was a guy that I worked with who was reading A Song of Ice and Fire. He was on book 2, and he was raving about it. He loved it. Tried to tell me the intricacies of it, but I'd never really picked up any books. But the seed was planted for A Song of Ice and Fire because he also said the HBO show was coming out. So I bought the first one and I started reading it. I got like halfway through, but I couldn't really click with all the characters and all the places. And being a new reader, A Song of Ice and Fire is kind of a heavy read. But once the first season came out, I watched the first season, and then things started to click and make sense. And I was like, okay, I could picture characters, I could picture places. And then I picked up the second book and then continue on from there. So I kind of did the same thing with Harry Potter and Song of Ice and Fire. I watched first, and then I read from there because I needed a visualization to picture all of what was going on. And I mean, Harry Potter, there was already 5 out already. So that's kind of how I got started there. Harry Potter was the first one, and then I still didn't get sucked into reading. And then 2012, I deployed again, and this time I knew I was going to have a whole lot of free time on my hands, and I just thought back to that guy who was reading Song of Ice and Fire then. So I decided, okay, I'll buy a Kindle. Kindles are pretty cheap, and I can load all my books onto here. And I did that, and I read, I don't know, 7 or 8 books while on deployment on that one, maybe more. And that's when I started like, okay, now I'm actually do enjoy reading. I do like these things, and that's when I read Song of Ice and Fire. I read the Silo series then, another series called Awakened, and it's just like small bud of interest in reading, but that's because there was nothing else to do at the time. And so seed was kind of planted, but then when I got back, I went back to school. I was going to college full time. No way I was going to read extra outside of college. I was doing other things at the time, so yeah, I'm not going to read double. I've kind of had this on again, off again relationship with books, so that in 2014 I studied abroad in Australia for a semester, and in Australia I didn't have a TV in my room, and then the cable that was in the main area, it wasn't very good. I was commuting 30 minutes to and from the gym every day because I had to take the bus, so I had a whole lot of time to read. So I read a bunch on that one, and that's once again on my Kindle. It really sparked reading in me and interest, and I knew I really liked it. But once again, I came back, finished up my senior year of college, which was pretty stressful all on its own, and I didn't really read much then. So fast forward to 2016, and my wife and I are engaged, we're living together, and I started a job where I had a super long commute, like an hour plus one way. So that's at least 2.5 hours a day in the car. And there was no way in hell that I was going to read actual books. But because of the long commute, I was doing a lot of podcasts, and then it was suggested that I start audiobooks. So I started audiobooks, and that's when I really actually started to like audiobooks. I'd never listened to audiobooks before. I never really cared about them, but I actually started to really like audiobooks at this time. And I mean, it really made my commute go better. I was knocking out books all the time through that. I started to do listen to them faster. And so that's what that started up again of, okay, I do these audiobooks, knocking those out. I left that job and started working from home full time, so then I had all kinds of time on my hands, and I still had all these books that I wanted to get to. So then I actually started reading them, and then 2017 I really started to pick up to actually reading consistently, a little bit before bed, a little bit on the weekends, and then it snowballed effect into end of 2017 we moved, and then 2018 I was working home full time, reading a lot, and I read like 50 books that year, and it's just kind of increased and exploded ever since. So that's kind of how my reading got started. I didn't read much before, but it was on again, off again, slowly trickled to now I read all the time. And that leads us into how I read all the time now. So now I'm a 60 to 70 book per year reader. I believe this year I am on pace to hit 70 or so, maybe over 70. The book length depends. But how I consume my books now. So I always have 3 books going at once. Typically always have 3 books going at once. kind of had 4 or 5 lately because of freaking A Count of Monte Cristo and my audiobook schedule. But I always have an audiobook going. That is the one that I listen to and from the gym, or when I'm doing a low intensity, like zone 2 type of conditioning, to where I don't really need to be super intense. I just need to kind of zone out and just stay a steady pace for a long time. So those I do, and it's between fantasy ones, and then that's also how I do my nonfiction, which we review on the website I work for. Then I have my physical books, where it is my daytime read, my weekend read. So when I'm sitting downstairs here and with my wife on the weekends and out and doing things, that's when I read my actual physical books to the whole, because I do like the variety of it. And those, a lot of times I get those super cheap anyway, so it's just easy then. And then the other one, my Kindle. I'm always reading on my Kindle. That stays by my bed. Every night we go to bed at an hour or so before we actually go to sleep. So we read at least an hour a night in bed on our Kindles, and it's great because, I mean, you're not holding 2 pages, you just hold it one hand, it's backlit, so in case you want to turn the light off and one of us wants to go to sleep, whatever, it's just fantastic that way. So I get at least hour and a half of Kindle reading a day, and then another 30 to 60 minutes of audiobook time, which the audiobook now I'm at 2x speed on whatever I'm listening to, so it goes a whole lot faster. So books are constantly going, and then on the weekends it's 3-4 hours a day of just sitting down here drinking coffee, maybe some cocktails, whatever, because we don't really do a whole lot on the weekends here right now. So getting a lot of reading in, that's how I stick to my schedule. That's how I read. My wife's about the same. She can kind of read during the work. Sometimes during the day I'm able to come downstairs because since I work from home full time, kind of on my own schedule. So there's times where I get some free time and I come down and I'll read for an hour or two before I start prepping dinner or whatever else is going on. But that's basically it. That's how I started reading, how I got to reading how I am now, and how I read nowadays, and how I'm able to read 70 plus books a year. I'm interested to know what your reading habits are, how you read, if you have multiple books going at once. I know it takes a little bit to get into. I know I had to ease into it, warm up. I know at one point I was just thinking, like, even doing 2 at once was way too much, but then it just slowly trickled to, oh well, I can do a little bit here, oh well, I can do this one here, and then that's just kind of how it happened. And just like with my origin, things didn't stick right away. It took a while to get into it. Some of those books I haven't read since I first read it at 2010, but then I didn't read for like an entire year or two because I just had other things going on. It didn't really stick. So how do you read? What are some of your reading habits, and does anybody else start a little bit later of a reader just like I did? Let me know down in the comments and we can chat about it there.